those people don't deserve a second chance. And there'll be an uptick in media coverage of the so-called pathologies of the urban poor, and we'll see Willie Horton ads once again, and the same old racially coded, racially charged rhetoric that was used, to give rise to the system will be used to defend it. So if we want to end this system, we are going to have to deal with race and the racial divisions that gave rise to it in the first place. And we're also going to have to deal with the stigma and shame in our own communities. The stigma, shame, and blame that keeps us divided and silent. Because the reality is all of us in this room are criminals. You may not want to admit it, but every person in this room has violated the law. You drank underage, or you experimented with drugs, or I like to say, if the worst thing you did in your boring life is speed 10 miles over the speed limit, you've put yourself and others at more risk of harm than somebody smoking a joint in the privacy of their living room. But there are people in the United States doing life sentences for first-time drug offenses. The U.S. Supreme Court upheld life sentences for first-time drug offenses in a case called Harmland versus Michigan. Life sentences, first-time drug possession. So this idea that, we need to do something about those criminals over there, those people in prison who are so different from us, no. We have all done wrong in our lives. We're all sinners. We've all made mistakes. Some of us have gotten caught, gone to jail, and been ushered into a second-class status for life, where there's been no second chances. So the question is, what are we willing to do on behalf of all of us? And are we willing to welcome home people returning home from prison, rather than shaming and blaming, saying we're going to welcome you home and support you, instead of shaming and blaming? There are people in this room, I guarantee it, who have been to prison who did not stand up when asked. I guarantee it, because they didn't want whoever they came with to know. That shame needs to end, because we've all done wrong, and we should all be giving each other the opportunity to do right over and over again. So this is going to take a movement, but before it gets so underway, a great awakening is required. We have got to awaken from this colorblind slumber to the realities of race in America. And we've got to be willing to embrace those labeled criminals. Not necessarily all their behavior, but them, their humanness, because it has been the refusal to honor the dignity and humanity of all people that has been the sturdy foundation for every caste system that has ever existed in the United States or anywhere else in the world. So it's our task, I firmly believe, to end not just mass incarceration, but the history and cycle of caste in America. Thank you very much for your time.
Do you know who we are? PCCEO, helping people, changing lives for every stage of life.
Hello, my name is Glenn Delaney. I was incarcerated. Matter of fact, I'm still on parole right now. And first of all, I ain't ashamed of my incarceration. It came to grips to who I am today, to who I identify with today. It was used for, the betterment of me, spiritually speaking. But my question is, we have nucleus, civil rights you're addressing, but unless we tie something together, lay the foundation. I ain't talking about selling books and everything else. Well, I'm talking about putting some course of action to guide the people which way we gonna go. And that's the question. I just want the next step to be addressed.
Yes, that's an excellent point that relates to a question that you just asked a minute ago, which is what organization exists nationally that is focusing directly on this, that someone can join and become a part of and become part of the movement? And I'd say, well, there's a number of organizations that claim to care, the NAACP. There's a number of organizations that have, pledged concern and are, interested in working on these issues. But unfortunately, in my view, there is not yet a national organization that is focused with like a laser beam on building a movement to end mass incarceration in the United States that people can join and plug into. I believe that that's going to have to start locally. It's going to have to start in communities like this, where people say, right here in Peoria, what are the practices that are operating to ensure that people are being swept up into the system and branded felons? In many communities, there have been campaigns to ban the box on employment applications that have been successful. There have been efforts to repeal the ban on, food stamps for people labeled as felons that have been successful in some states. There has not yet been a successful effort to repeal bans on discrimination against people with convictions in housing, but that should happen. In Illinois, taking a look here, this is ground zero for the drug war in Illinois. You have some of the highest racial disparities for drug convictions in Illinois of anywhere else in the United States. Taking a look at how drug enforcement happens right here in Peoria, what harsh mandatory minimum sentences can be addressed. So, there is plenty of work to be done, and it has to begin somewhere. So, churches can say, all right, we're going to take on the reentry piece, or, community organizations can say, we're going to focus like a laser beam on the mandatory minimum sentences. But whatever aspect of this system that folks are seeking to reform, the stated goal has to be not just fixing that one piece of it, but there has to be an open stated goal of we're determined to end mass incarceration in America and the relegation of millions to a permanent second-class status. And the work we're doing is one small part of that larger goal and that larger movement. I'm sorry.
Hello, how you doing? My name is Fred Young. I just want to thank you for, bringing such vital information to us. And also, I want to ask a question or make a statement. In 2006, I was labeled a felon. Since that time, I've graduated twice from college. I've had a GPA. I've carried a 4.0 GPA for the past 3 years, and I'm an international honor student for Phi Theta Kappa.
Congratulations.
Now, yet even with those things that I've challenged myself to do, I'm still labeled felon, and I just like to know when will something be done to, give felons who are striving to, become better, when will that help come for them, because no matter what I do, it seems I'm still a felon. So,
Absolutely. If you want to. Yeah, I think it's up to us. It's up to us. We've got to make that change happen. We've got to make that change happen. And, it's absolutely, inexcusable that someone, for a mistake they make once in their life, can be asked to pay for it by being shamed and stigmatized and discriminated against for the rest of their lives. And this is, many of us who, I identify someone as someone of faith, person of faith, and yet in many of our churches, there's still an attitude of shame and blame and no real opportunity for forgiveness for people when they're returning from prison. And I think those attitudes have got to change, but they're not going to change by themselves. We're going to have to make them change. It's going to take a tremendous amount of organizing and advocacy and work, but I believe it can be done.
Thank you. I want to add on to that real quick. Earlier this year, my wife and I and another young guy went up to Chicago at the invitation of State Representative Connie Howard. In Chicago, every 3 months they have what's called an expungement summit up there. And I was hoping that one of the things that we would come out of this night, and I was talking to Mr. Romaine back there in the back, and we're going to form a committee, and we're going to get it started along with a lawyer here. His name is Kendrick Cobb. He knows the same people I talked to up in Chicago, and we're going to start holding those expungement summits down here so people who've done their time, paid their debt to society, living the life they're supposed to live, doing the things that you're doing like you are, we're going to get together, work with the state's attorney and the county clerk, and try to make sure that we get those people back into the mainstream and out of the system so you can start being productive citizens that you've grown to be. So that's what we're working on. I'm still working on mine, and it was 1984. So it's a process, but like Mike said earlier, we got to do this together, you know, and like Michelle said, it's going to take a major movement. You know, we can't be piecework. We all got to do this together. So if you are so inclined, and anybody else in here, we'll be meeting in the back in just a few minutes, and we want to get a committee together so we can start holding these expungement summits and get some of this stuff taken off people's records and get their records cleared.